All right, welcome to another edition of Ranking the Songs this time around. And today we are bringing in a special guest who helped us do a couple of these rankings. Been a while though, but let's welcome Jim Baase. Welcome.
Hello, hello.
Been a while since we
Down
got to
here
see
in
you.
down here in Florida, enjoying the winter weather.
Yeah, you're in Tom Petty's home state there, and that's the artist that we're doing today, Mr. Tom Petty, ranking what me and you feel are his top 10 songs. And man, what
hmm
a feat this
What?
was trying to come up with what to keep, what to toss out. It was just I found it really hard to go through this, but I got it done in a pretty quick amount of time.
Yeah, he's got quite a catalog, so it was hard to go through. But knowing all these songs so well, I my list went pretty quick too. For just 10 songs, it was kind of easy.
All right, well, let's hear what you came in at number 10 with. We'll start it right off here.
All right, my number 10 song. Well, this song was covered by Johnny Cash. It was co-written with Jeff Lynne of ELO. George Harrison played acoustic guitar and backing vocals. And one little tidbit about this song is it as a tribute to Tom Petty since his death. The Florida Gators football team in his hometown of Gainesville, Florida. They have a tradition after the third quarter of every home football game. They sing this song, and it's quite something to hear 80,000 Gator fans singing my number 10 song, "I Won't Back Down,"
Mm.
live in a stadium. You got to look it up on YouTube. It's something to behold. But yeah, it's just a great positive song. You know, an anthem of perseverance in the face of adversity, and that's one thing that Tom was up against with record companies and everything in his career. So it won't back down. That's my number 10.
All right, yeah. So that's a song that I think a lot of people will automatically assume that will be on a top 10. We'll see if it actually ends up on mine here. But my number 10 is different. I come in from the Southern Accents album with the number 13 single, Don't Come Around Here No More. And this was one of those songs that actually made the Rolling Stone top 10. I think I got 4 or 5 on the Rolling Stones top 10, which I was kind of surprised by because I thought I had like an eclectic group of songs here, but it's kind of hard when you got that many good songs. You're not gonna Everybody's list is never gonna be exactly the same when you got such a vast catalog as this one. But um yeah, Don't Come Around Here No More. I was kind of surprised it made my top 10 because there's a couple songs, that were not that were left off because of it. But when I went through my final selecting process, I just couldn't. Don't Come Around Here No More was just couldn't be denied. So they're my number 10 right there.
Yeah, that one just barely made it. It was my number 11, and I love that
Oh
song
wow.
because it was such a departure from his normal music, and I think a lot of that had to do with Dave Stewart joining and with him on that one. But yeah, it almost made it, but I won't back down. It edged it out.
Oh yeah.
So going to my number 9 song is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated Petty songs. It was musically inspired by Jeff Lynne's use of the guitar chords in this song, in the song "Do Ya," that old ELO song,
Mm.
and it's a third single from 1982's "Change of Heart," and it is or the song is "Change of Heart." And I've always loved that song. I remember in high school when it came out, and it was a single, and it was a from Long After Dark is the album, and yeah, I always just loved that guitar riff and everything. And I believe Ace Frehley even covered that song, didn't he? Oh no, that was the Do Ya. But Change
Yeah,
of Heart, yeah, yeah, I'm getting confused here. Yep,
yeah. Ace did do
change,
ya. Yeah.
yeah, Change of Heart was my number nine song. Good rocker.
Okay. Let's see if that one rears its head again or not. All right. So my number nine is a song that I would expect most people would probably assume it would be in the top 10. Um, Peaked at number 23 back in 1989. And it's from his first technical solo album, Full Moon Fever. It was the second single released. And it's none other than Running Down a Dream. Um, it's one of those songs from that album that, there's like three songs from that album that got really big airplay, and Running Down a Dream probably received the least amount of airplay just because the other two songs on it, which was not your number 10, and another one that we'll see if it pops up on our list or not. Um, so it was the third single. It didn't, I feel that maybe that's why it's lasted for me better, where it just hadn't gotten worn out enough. Sometimes overhearing a song can sometimes ruin your perception of how you like a song, unfortunately. And it's
Yeah, like
not,
Stairway to Heaven.
and it's not that I have anything against the song, but sometimes these radio people or whoever, you know, whatever artist it is, sometimes they just keep throwing these songs down your throat, no matter how many times you hear it, and you just get sick of some of these songs. But this is one I didn't get sick of, and definitely number nine for me here on from Full Moon Fever, which was his first actual solo, credited as a solo album. But that's that's a whole nother matter. And just we are doing any song that Tom Petty had anything to do with here um, on this list. That's one thing we should have clarified right from the beginning, because he does have Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and Tom Petty the solo career.
Hmm.
All right, so what do you got for number eight?
My number eight, the original version of the song was 7 minutes long, and I don't know why it was cut down so much, down to 2 minutes and 39 seconds. It's such a great song. It was covered by Grace Jones with a reggae version. And Tom actually wrote a third verse for it, which they could have thrown that in. Well, maybe he did it after Grace Jones covered it, but they could have thrown that in. I don't know if he ever has thrown that extra verse in there. It's a pretty good one. It's got one of Mike Campbell's most memorable guitar licks. And my number eight song is Breakdown,
Mm, the
which I'm kind of surprised it's so low, but there's so many good ones above it. But I always like that one.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough call. I could share right now that that song did not make my list here. But like you said, there's so many other ones. It was really a tough call. I mean, had we done this back in like 1984, 85, Breakdown definitely would have been on my list. But he's made like what, how
Yeah.
many how many albums since then, So um yeah, that's a tough call on that one. But that Breakdown is one of the other ones that, I mean, I don't know how it is down there by you, but up here by us, we hear it quite frequently, kind of still to this day. That's one of the ones in American Girl. Those are the two that we hear overplayed a lot up here. So, I just don't
Yeah.
like overplaying of songs, unless it's a really, really good song. It's like there are certain songs, no matter how many times you hear it, you still enjoy it just as much every time you hear it. And then there's songs that you hear constantly. Like a good example would be like Def Leppard, Pour Some Sugar on Me. I mean, how many times do you hear that song compared to the rest of the catalog? It's just like some people would think that they don't even have any other songs out because you get the overplaying of that one, or Guns N' Roses, Welcome to the Jungle is another overplayed song. That there's just so many songs that get overplayed constantly that it just turns you off on them, basically, really.
Well, I think you've got that problem. That may be just exclusively to the North or Buffalo per se, because they don't play any good songs down here. So I don't even listen to the radio anymore. I don't know. It might just be me, but yeah, you don't hear that. They tend to overplay a lot of Bad Company here, and that's about it. And I think what was the guy who took over as the lead singer? He used to live down here in this
Brian
part of
Howe.
Southwest Florida, Brian Howe. Yeah, so maybe that's why they played it. Who knows? Maybe the DJs were friends with him. But other than that, yeah, we don't get too many songs worn out here. They just don't play anything good.
All right, so that was your number 8 breakdown.
Yep.
All right, so mine is actually not a song that Tom Petty wrote. It actually was written by a pair of guys with the name of Jack Nietzsche and Sonny Bono. So, any guesses on to what that song is?
I have no idea. Sonny Bono, huh?
Yeah, I know. I was surprised. I didn't realize it either.
This must be a deep track in there, maybe on the box set or something. I
No,
had no idea.
it's actually on the live album, and it was a duet he did with Stevie Nicks, and that's none other than number 30. It reached number 37 on the charts, and it's Needles and Pins.
Oh, yes. Now, I didn't know Sonny wrote that, but yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it was a cover.
Yep.
Okay.
I
I
just
should have
love
known that.
Yeah, I just love that live version. I mean, and to have Stevie Nicks and him duetting on it, pretty cool. Um, I like it a lot better than Stop Dragging My Heart Around for some reason. I don't know why, but uh, just a great song, Needles and Pins, and I cracked my top 10 here, and it lands at number 8. That comes from Pack Up the Plantation Live, which was the live album that Petty released back in 1985.
Yeah, we used to listen to that one up in Gainesville in college all the time. And that's one of the reasons why I like breakdowns so much, because that was a much longer version.
Yeah.
Yep, good one. Good live album.
All
Okay,
right.
my number 7 song here was it reached number 10 on the Billboard charts, which I'm surprised of. It was originally recorded with his first band, Mudcrutch, in 1974. And Tom actually considered giving the song to the Jay Giles band because it sounded more like their kind of vibe, their sound. It became the band's only top 10 hit. And the song is Don't Do Me Like That.
Off Damn the Torpedoes.
Yep.
The
Damn the torpedoes.
first album that I ever remember back in my youth of Tom Petty's.
Yeah, that it had a lot of good songs on that one. And just Don't Do Me Like That, just the drums and the organ and everything, just musically, it's just a great song. Just always put you in a good mood, in my opinion.
All right. So number 7, Don't Do Me Like That for you. All right. So my number 7 is kind of a surprise. I actually didn't realize that this was gonna make it on here. I mean, wasn't it's one of those songs that kind of like just stood there, and I never really got a chance to listen to it a lot, but you always want to listen to her heart. Number 7. I was surprised that it landed there, but this song actually landed in the Rolling Stones top 10 as well, surprisingly. It was a single. It did reach number 59 on the charts, and this goes all the way back to the second album, You're Gonna Get It. And didn't make top 40, but it got some airplay, obviously, reaching up to 59. But to tell you the truth, I don't ever remember hearing it on any radio up here at all. They always, once Damn the Torpedoes came out here, we started hearing more Petty, but it was more or less those songs from Damn the Torpedoes. And then you would hear American Girl or Breakdown, like you said. But other than that, um, Never really heard "Listen to Your Heart," her heart much on the radio at all. So it was,
I don't think I ever heard it on the radio.
yeah, it's definitely a
Yeah, just
dark horse kind of song for me. Like I said, I never would have imagined in a million years that it was going to make my top 10, especially with all the songs that I could have put on here. So that's what I got. That's number 7 for me.
okay. My number six song is from Damn the Torpedoes, and I looked into this one a little. It was inspired by a fond recollection of a night he had with a middle school crush who jilted him the next morning. And it was then that he decided I've got to be in a band because that's most motivation for guys back then was get in a band to get the girls, and that's what just Tom getting his heart broken overnight was sort of the what got him on that track. Um, and this particular song, it's just a fun song to listen to, and it is Even the Losers. And one interesting thing about this, Mike Campbell is having trouble coming up with the guitar solo, and I don't know why. Tom just said, "Well, what would Chuck Berry do?" And within minutes, Tom came up or Mike came up with it and had that Berry-esque, um, solo there. And if you listen to the song, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But that's a fun song to listen to. Got a lot of good lyrics and everything in it, as well as the good music.
Yeah, surprisingly, he never released that one as a single. I was kind of surprised by that because that's one you actually hear on the radio quite a bit. Even back in the day. So, um,
Yeah, it's telling a story. It's a good song, and that's what Tom
mhm.
Petty was all about, telling stories. And okay,
All right, yeah. So that was your number 6. Mine is gonna be the song that saved the album Hard Promises. And that song reached number 19, and it's none other than The Waiting is the Hardest Part. Yeah, I mean, if that song did not come out on that album, I think that album definitely would not have, you got to remember that's the follow-up to Damn the Torpedoes.
hmm
And it just, for whatever reason, other than that song, I mean, they really didn't touch it up here on radio at all. And oddly enough, it did go platinum, but I think a lot of that had to do with being the follow-up to Damn the Torpedoes. And wasn't he going through some kind of problem with MCA as well at that
Oh
point in
yeah,
time?
they wanted to raise at the time the MCA wanted to raise the record price to like
Yes.
10.95, and it used to be at 9.95, and over that $1 raise, Tom Petty just went ballistic, and he really started fighting with the record companies. I mean, he was all about the fans, and that's one of the things that he's well known for is just fighting, man, for what he believed in, and that was not stealing that extra dollar out of the pockets of his fans.
Yeah, so he was going to charge, they were going to charge $1 more for the list price of it. And he was actually considering naming it 8.98, which was the
Yeah, that's
cost
right.
of the
Yeah, that's what it
album.
was. Yeah, that's right.
Typical of MCA, which if you remember is known as the Music Cemetery of America.
Yeah,
Man, that
you got
record,
your last top 10. You guys were talking using that term.
yeah, I mean that was crazy that MCA Records has been, it's amazing they had as much success as they did with all the other problems that that company acquired, but now, they're a big part of, that record company really doesn't exist anymore, and they're just now a part of Universal, which is like the biggest company out there. But
hmm
yeah, so yeah, The Waiting, I felt reaching number 19, and that's the only one that really got a lot of airplay on that album. So it really saved the album. And like I think you said, like you said, more people remember that album more or less for being that sticker price hike thing, that debate that was going on at the time. But MCA did decide against it at that point in time. But it was good to see Tom stand up for the fans and take a stand against it because back then you didn't really see too many people back there doing that. That was something that was definitely out of the norm per se.
Hmm. Yeah, and that particular album, yeah, I mean, it was hard to find a good one, but a little later on, I'll mention a deep track that I think is especially good. Um, but as we move along, it's ready for my number five?
Yeah, we got the top five coming in here.
Okay, this one, third song in a row from Damn No Torpedoes, and it's probably obvious. You could guess. Uh, Part of this was inspired by his battle with his record label, and the music was written by Tom Campbell, and Tom easily wrote the lyrics, and it turned out to be one of their masterpieces. And Jimmy Iovine put him through the ringer, though. He had them doing like 100 takes of recordings, and at one point I read where they it took them a week of adjusting the snare drums to get the right sound, and that's how Jimmy Iovine was. But when they were done, they had a good song, and that is Refugee, my number five.
All right. The very first Tom Petty song that I ever really came to know and love.
Yeah, it's a good song, and when you know the story behind it, and you actually listen to the production of it, it was worth all the sweat and tears that they did to get that thing finished.
All right, so that was your number five. It's going to take me down to my number five, which oddly enough is coming from that same album, Damn the Torpedoes. Definitely a great album there. I can't wait to get to the album ranking of the Tom Petty one of these days to see where all these albums actually fall. But so the number five for me is going to be the third single released from Damn the Torpedoes, reaching number 59, and that's none other than Here Comes My Girl. Classic Petty all
Oh
the
yeah.
way. Phenomenal song. Um, it's just a great song there with Here Comes My Girl. One of the more listenable pleasures from that era, because he had a lot of angst in a lot of his songs, but this song was more a little bit more mellower than like Don't Do Me Like That and Refugee, so it helped balance the album a little bit,
Hmm.
because he had those two really good rockers there. And that's what helped that album. I mean, obviously it comes from his biggest selling album. There's no doubt that's Damn the Torpedoes is definitely, I believe it's his well, out of the band with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, because let's see, we talk about. Yeah, so that was three times platinum for Damn the Torpedoes, and Full Moon Fever sold more, but that was more or less released as a solo album, five times platinum. So
Hmm. Yeah, and this one, I don't know whether was this the a track right after even the Losers, because it always seems like those two songs always went together, and that one almost made my list. But I mean, this is like the fourth song from Torpedoes, that's on our list here, I
yeah,
believe, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
So
it
Ref,
just shows how good an album it is overall.
yeah, so Refugee's the first song on side one, and it goes right into Here Comes My Girl, followed by Even the Losers, and then Don't Do Me Like That kicks off the side two. If you're going by album, where you're flipping the album over and putting the needle on
Hmm.
it. Back then, the record album was the biggest selling media format for music, back in the day when that one was released. And then
Yeah.
cassette kind of came in after that, and then CD took over. And here we are today. Now vinyl is back after being almost extinct. Who would have thought, right?
I know, it's sort of like a nostalgic thing. Yeah, there's some people really into it.
Oh yeah. All right, so that is where are we at now? We're at
Number four.
four.
I'm
Yep.
coming up on number four here. This one is from Into the Great Wide Open from 1991. Um, it's kind of strange that that's my number four song, but I've always loved this song. It's sort of like a, you know, may or may not have been an observation. You know, a lot of things, a lot of songs Tom didn't necessarily write because they were part of his life, but it was just observing just life, and you know, and being one of the best American songwriters, in my opinion, of the 20th and into the 21st century. This particular song, you know, the lyrics suggest about, you know, staying on the road to self-fulfillment, I believe, and the song is called King's Highway.
Hmm.
I love the acoustic unplugged version, and he's done at some concerts. And sadly enough, I never did get to see Tom Petty, but I've heard the live version of it, and it's just a really good song to listen to. The just the him and the guitar, the acoustic version of King's Highway, my number four.
Yeah, definitely one of the highlights from Into the Great Wide Open. There's a lot of songs from that album actually that, that I'm surprised we haven't mentioned a lot about it yet, but we've got a little bit of time here. We'll see if anything changes on our list here. All right, so my number four is a song that you mentioned at number five, and that's going to be "Refugee," which not sure if we mentioned, but it reached number 15 on the chart, so it was 5 spots behind "Don't Do Me Like That." But man, "Refugee" is the song that really caught my attention when that album came out, and I just have always loved that song. I was actually surprised. I thought it'd be a little bit lower, but then when I went back and looked at the songs that I had ahead of it, I just, for whatever reason, I just felt those songs are a little bit stronger considering, um, they came out around not too far after Damn the Torpedoes, but definitely after. Um, so I'll give you a hint that those songs are in the 80s. But that's all I will say and about that. But Refugee definitely, yeah, I hear that song live. That's one of the great songs. If you ever did get whoever did get to see Petty, or if you listen to the Plantation album, Refugee is on there. Definitely one of the best songs, and it goes over great live, just as you would expect it to.
Oh yeah, I mean right when the song starts, it gets your attention. I remember the first time I heard it, and I'm sure every other time you hear it, it's just it hits you right in the face. It's almost like Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers had their own wall of sound. I mean, you could just recognize it when you heard it, and this is definitely one. It's like Refugee is in your face right away, and you just got to listen to it every time. It's one of those ones you go around the block in the car if it's on the radio. Go the extra circle.
All
Okay,
right.
my number three song is actually this is the very last song that Tom Petty ever played. It was the encore to the final show of their 40th anniversary tour at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles. And there was an urban legend going around that this particular song was about a girl who committed suicide, jumped off the balcony of her dorm room at the University of Florida. Not true. And Tom actually said, after all these years of this going around, this ridiculous thing going, story going around, he said, "Why didn't anybody just ask me? I would have told them that's not what it was about." But my number three song is American Girl. Just a great song. I mean, when you hear it, it just puts you in a good mood. And of course, me being a University of Florida alumnus, that is a song that was on the radio all the time, and I never got tired of it. And that is number three, American Girl.
Okay. Yep, yeah, that's an interesting thing there. His last song he ever played, and he died a week later.
Yep,
After that tour
exactly.
ended, man, what a weird way. I was shocked when I heard the news that he had a medical situation going on, and then at first people were saying he passed away, and then they found out that he didn't really pass away till later on that night. But just a shame how it all went down, and I mean, at least he was able to finish out his tour, I guess. It's just weird because that was the closest place to his house. So he basically just went home and You know, that was unfortunately the end of his everything there. Unfortunately, it's something that I was just surprised because I thought he had a lot more left in him. You know, I figured if he would have been alive today, he probably by now at this point he probably would have made two or three more albums, probably knowing him.
Yeah, I mean, I took that one pretty hard. I mean, at that time we had a really bad Hurricane Irma here in Florida. A couple of weeks before he died, and I didn't know anything what was going on in the news. And my daughter texted me and said Tom Petty died, and it just hit me like a rock, harder than the hurricane. That in American history of music for me, losing Tom Petty was the biggest hit that I ever took, and I miss it.
Yeah, so yeah, number three for me is a song that you actually mentioned already. But I will say this, my next two songs after you haven't mentioned yet. So maybe I'll sneak one of them by you
Oh,
before you
can't
mention
wait.
it. We'll see. But this one is none other than the comes from the album that you mentioned, Long After Dark. And that the only song that you mentioned was Change of Heart, of course, which is yeah, this album it only went gold, oddly enough. You know, he Damned Out Torpedoes hit three times platinum. Then Hard Promises made it platinum. Probably wouldn't have if he didn't get that sticker price changed. But this next album, Long After Dark, which was released at the end of 1982, it went gold, but it didn't make it to platinum. But Change of Heart is definitely one of the highlights on this album, and it did reach number 21, so two songs on this album help propel it, at least as far as it got there with the sales. Um, and Long After Dark did reach number 9, so um, you know I think that's one of his dark horse albums of his career. I think that album is very underrated. Um, you know, and then Change of Heart's another one too. I was looking at some other lists to get some ideas of what people were putting down. And I don't think I saw a Change of Heart in any lists hardly at all. And so that
Yeah, I
just
mean, people have
goes,
to. Yeah, people need to listen to it. It's just a great riff right at the beginning of the song. It's really good.
yeah, definitely my third favorite Tom Petty song with two more that are just a little bit better than it. All right, so we got
Hmm.
top two. Let's see what you come up with here. I'm interested to find out and see what you got here.
Well, this was off of Full Moon Fever. Uh, it's the highest charting song. I think I don't know whether we mentioned that at number seven. And the content of the song is basically just kind of what Tom observed when he was driving down Ventura Boulevard every day, talking about the vampires and roaming around and everything. And it's just a song about Los Angeles. And the opening line was sort of a joke when him and Jeff Lynne were trying to come up with a song, and Tom just came up with something to make Jeff laugh. It's like she's a good girl, she loves her mother, and that song is Free Fallin'. And it's my number two. It's one of my favorite songs of all time. It's just the layering. I mean, if you go into the song and really listen to it, I mean, just the layering and the harmonies and the echo and the everything. It's almost a masterpiece, and it is a masterpiece. And Jeff Lynne has a lot to do with that. He was quite a producer. And Free Fallin' is my definitely my number two song.
All right, very good. All right, yeah, highest charting song out of his solo or Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers career at number 7. All right, so that's going to take us down to my number 2, which is a song that never charted. I think out of the top 10 for me, this is the only song that didn't chart out of the top 10 here for me. And it's going to come from an album you probably wouldn't have expected here. And that would be the 1980, let's see, when was that album released here? 1987. Let Me Up, I've Had Enough. And if you'd say the song was Jammin' Me, you're wrong.
I was about to think it was.
Nope. There's a song on here I just simply love that just never got its just due. It was never released. Well, it was released, but it never charted. At least not on the US Billboard charts. It did chart on the US rock charts, which is a totally different chart, reaching number 6, but never on the Billboard 100. And that is the second single that was released and got a little bit of airplay. Probably the only song other than "Jammin' Me" that did get some airplay from this album, and that is none other than "Runaway Trains." Just
Wow.
love this song. Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, it's one of those songs that you really have to listen to. You talk about listening to some of the ones you like, "Change of Heart," like you mentioned, and a couple other ones, but "Runaway Trains" is definitely one of these songs. It's a different flavor for Tom. It's a totally different type of song. But yeah, you listen that and Jamming Me back to back. It's like they're two totally different types of songs, but they go, they fit that album just fine. That's another album that I feel, it didn't go. From what I remember, I just looked at it here. Yeah, it only went gold as well. So if you look at his career in the 80s, he had two albums that only went gold, but those two to me are probably some of the better albums, although they had a lot, he had a lot going against, you know, but I like them both better than Southern Accents, even though that one reached number 7. But Let Me Up, I had enough, only reached number 20. So we started seeing things regress a little, and it only went gold following a platinum album. But then, of course, once Full Moon Fever came out, that really catapulted the 90s and started it off on the right foot for him for sure. No doubt about that. He was everywhere on the radio because he made the solo album and he basically really it didn't seem like he took much time off. And then before you know it, Into the Great Wide Open came out. So there was a lot going on there. Him and Jeff Lynne and Mike Campbell really they just hung out all the time, wrote songs, and made a lot of great songs in that period of time. Let's put it that way. Between the songs
Yeah.
from Full Moon Fever and Into the Great Wide Open, man, it was just a good time to be a Tom Petty fan, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So Runaway Trains at number 2. So that's gonna take us to our number 1, and I'm trying to think what you would pick as number 1. And I don't know. I wonder if you're going to surprise me here. Go ahead and let's have it.
But probably not. We'll see. I mean, I was reading about this song, and the title was inspired by a quote by Janis Joplin, and she said, and Tom liked this, and it's what inspired him. He said, her quote is, "I love being on stage, and everything else is just waiting." And somebody like me who has absolutely no patience, the waiting is the hardest part. And that is my number one song, The Waiting.
Wow.
And in my opinion, the perfect song, musically and lyrically. If you just listen to how the music goes and the just the it just fits so well with the lyrics and everything. And it's just it's Tom Petty was a genius. I mean, there's a lot of songs on here I could have gone into, gone on forever talking about his songwriting abilities and
Hmm.
lyrics, and it's one of the things. And I'm not a person who's always listening to the lyrics, but Tom Petty's songs always, they tell a story, and that is my number one song, "The Waiting."
All right. Yeah, I didn't expect that one, but it was high on my list too, number 6. So we definitely both of us had that song on the list here for sure. When you got so many different, this guy's had how many top 40 hits if you look at it, probably about 20 or 25. So, and like, I only had one that didn't chart on my top 10. I don't know. I think all yours had pretty much charted as well.
Yeah, I see. I'm looking at my notes here. There's a lot of them, and it's just, I mean, they're just, and there's so many more. but these are the best ones, the ones that give me that good round the block in the car feeling, that you always got to listen to them.
All
And what do you
right.
have? What do you have at number one, Joe?
All right. Well, I mentioned how some of these albums in the 80s were kind of underrated, but I would say this was probably one of his best songs. Not, well, obviously it's his best song to me, but it was one of the best songs that it only reached number 20 on the charts, and it was the first single released off of none other than Long After Dark. And man, I don't know how anybody doesn't have this song on their top 10 list, but I guess you're the exception to the rule, but none other than You Got Lucky. You know, everybody says that that song sounds kind of dated with the keyboard intro and the keyboards, but I'll tell you, man, that song, the lyrics, his voice, the music, it's truly, truly, truly love that song. No matter, that's one of those songs I can hear it 100 times in a row and probably would not get sick of it.
Yeah, I mean, it was 1982. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the lyrics, the one that stands out in my mind the most is when he says, "You got lucky when I found you." Um, that's just that's right there. That's Tom Petty in a nutshell. It's like just the lyrics that he comes up with. I always love that one.
So that's my number one. You Got Lucky from none other than Long After Dark, probably the most underrated Tom Petty album that's out there right now. Um, yeah, so yeah, this was a great exercise. And of course, when you have a list where you could only pick 10 songs, then, there's going to be some leftovers that, that just you just couldn't fit in the list because there's too many songs, and especially a guy with a caliber like this. So, why don't you give me a couple of your honorable mentions here and see how they worked out for you there?
All right, one of them that it couldn't really make the list. It's an obscure song. It's on let's see, what album was it? I should have made a note on this one. Um, you go ahead. Oh, Hard Promises. It's one of the, Hard Promises we were talking.
Mm,
It didn't really have a heck of a lot of really hits that caught your eye, but this is one that was sort of hidden. And he wrote this song for Stevie Nicks, and the song is called Insider. And the after he wrote it, he said, "Wait a minute, I'm not going to give this to her. I like this. It was probably one of the best." He said it was one of the best songs he ever wrote, and everyone should give that one a try. Listen to it. It's down at the bottom, I think, maybe one of the last songs on that album. And he was going to give it to Stevie Nicks, and he decided to keep it for himself. He liked it so much.
mm.
So,
All right,
and
so
then
mhm.
there was another one, and it slips my mind. The album is from, maybe you could help me with this one. It's called The Best of Everything, and they did like I think a big compilation album I found online. It was called The Best of Everything, and this is just a beautiful song, lyrically and music. And I think he had given it to Robbie Robertson of the band at one point. I was reading, and Robbie put horns on it,
Mm.
and it's just a beautiful song. It's with the horns and everything, and the lyric. It's one of those wistful songs that sort of kind of make you have a particular feeling. And that's a really deep track that not a lot of people know.
And that's the name of the song, The Best of Everything.
The Best of Everything, yeah.
Oh, okay. The original version was from Southern Accents,
Yeah, that's it. Southern accents. Hmm.
but the alternate version is on the, like you said, the box set there of The Best of Everything.
The
Or
Best of Everything, and actually, it's there's an extra chorus on there,
mm,
which doesn't quite fit the song, makes the song a little bit longer. But if you listen to that one, the original one, on Southern Accents, it has just a couple choruses, but this one there's an extra lyric in there. It's pretty good, but it doesn't quite fit the theme of the song.
Mm,
So there are two versions of it.
gotcha. All right. Did you have anything else or just those two?
Off the top of my head, there are so many but I wanted to mention those two songs because they're definitely worth a listen for all the our fans out there. But listen to both of those. They're really good. They're not your typical Tom Petty songs, but they're and Tom loved them. So they're good songs. Check them out. So what do you have? I
All
think
right.
you have
So
more than me.
I got a few. All right. So I got from Into the Great Wide Open, I got the single that reached number 28. And that is none other than Learning to Fly, which was one of the highlights of the album Into the Great Wide Open. You know, it's odd. I realized this when I was going through here. I'm going, man, that's hard to believe. The Great Into the Great Wide Open. I know that album pretty good. Yeah, only one song reached top 40, and that was this one, Learning to Fly, which was the first single. It's just weird
Mhm.
because there's so many, they played that album a lot back in the day when it came out. Everywhere I would
Oh
go, they
yeah,
would play so many songs from that album. So I was kind of surprised that only one song made the top 40. It's kind of hard to believe. Then the only other song that charted from it was Into the Great Wide Open, the title cut. Um, but for some reason, he released a lot of singles from this album, but none of them really landed on the Billboard 100. A bunch of them did land on the US rock charts, which, like I mentioned, was a totally different chart. But I guess it helped pay the bills because if you get landed on any type of chart, it definitely is a positive. Um, so yeah, so that's what I got that one, and then another classic that almost made my top 10, which was just a little bit short, and I wanted to make sure I mentioned, comes from Wildflowers, and that's none other than You Wreck Me. I've always liked that song. He played it the last time I got to see him, which was great, and it was the second last song he played from his final tour. So that was the first encore. So definitely a true highlight in his set, and one of the songs that came close, but it just fell outside the top 10 for me. Then and I got
yeah,
three more. I've got the one song that kind of probably will surprise you is coming from none other than the album Long After Dark again. We're gonna deep go back into that album for a moment.
really.
And yep, we're gonna pull out the first song on side one. And what does that album begin with, if you remember?
I can't.
Uh,
I couldn't tell
lost,
you.
lost in a one-story town.
Oh.
Because the same shit goes down. Good old Petty, man, with great lyrics. And yeah, that's one of those underrated songs that never really got the airplay it got, but maybe it stood out for me because whenever I played that album, you put it on, boom, it's the first song, and it just resonated well with me. But I've always liked that song, even though it was one of those ones that never really got the airplay or anything like that. So that's two songs there for me that didn't chart on my honorable mentions. Then, of course, I'll mention "Jammin' Me." Um,
Hmm.
a lot of name dropping on that song, and
Oh, that's a song that prompted Eddie Murphy to say F Tom Petty because he's mentioned in the song and he didn't say F. He said the full word. I'll keep it clean. But yeah, I remember seeing once Joe Piscopo. I think Joe Piscopo was mentioned but he kept quiet about it. But Eddie Murphy, I think, took offense.
yeah, and who helped Tom Petty write that song?
I don't know who's that
And
one?
and that was none other than Bob Dylan.
Really?
Yeah,
It does seem kind of like, now that I think of it, yeah, that's kind of a Bob Dylan-esque listing of things that bother him.
yeah. So "Jammin' Me" goes back to the "Let Me Up, I've Had Enough" album. So "Jammin' Me" was co-written with Dylan, Petty, and Mike Campbell, and Mike Campbell explained that the Jam Me was interesting. He wrote the track, gave it to Tom, and held on to it for a while. And Bob wrote the words. He wasn't there when Bob wrote the words to it, but was pretty thrilled when he heard that Bob Dylan contributed to that song. And a pretty interesting.
Now that you mentioned that, I do remember that. It's coming out of my memory banks. Yeah, I was in college at the time, and yeah, I remember hearing Jamming Me on the radio up there. Yep.
Yeah. So that was one of the highlights there. And then the last one is one that probably lands on everybody's top 10, but for some reason I just found 10 songs that I like just a little bit better, and that was Free Fallin', obviously. Like you would have mentioned, a true classic. It's definitely a great song. Little overplayed, but still a great song nonetheless. Yeah, so
Hmm.
that's what I got for the honorable mentions. And anything else you care to add to the discussion here while we're here before I let you go?
No, I mean, I got to say, I thoroughly enjoyed this little exercise. It was probably one of the quickest turnarounds. I think you asked me on Wednesday or something like that if I wanted to do it, and you know how hard it is to get me in front of a camera, giving my opinion. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, Joe, and it was good to see you and see your face. It's been a while, and maybe we'll do this again.
I really enjoyed it. So hopefully we'll have more coming your way, and stay tuned for more.